Welcome back. The Department of Justice Inspector General reportedly set to release a report on James Comey's corrupt behavior during his time as FBI director. The Washington Examiner's Byron York telling us the report could be released tomorrow. The Inspector General is looking into classified memoranda detailing private conversations Comey had with President Trump. Comey leaked those memos to a friend in the media. Joining us tonight, Victoria Toensing, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division of the Justice Department; Joe diGenova, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, founding partners of the diGenova and Toensing law firm. Great to have you both with us. Your reaction to these reports, and let me be specific, Byron York of the Washington Examiner reporting that this could come within 24 hours. Your thoughts, Victoria?
Well, first of all, Lou, I want to say congratulations on being #1 for 40 months.
Well,
I want to know when you get tired of winning. Would you please tell us?
Yes, but be prepared to wait.
Okay. Now, regarding the Comey report, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that there was a decision not to prosecute Comey, and now the IG report is coming out. So I don't think it's any big deal as far as it's going to come out in 24 hours. It may criticize him, but the decision has already been made not to prosecute him. What I hope is that he is included, Comey, in the FISA abuse part, because he signed the first FISA application with verified on the top of it, and it was not verified, and that is a gross error. It's a taking away the due process of Carter Page.
Two questions, Joe, then, that spring from what Victoria has said. One is, why then would the Inspector General be carrying a separate report on the fired former FBI director with this, at least the suggestion that there would be no prosecution? Could this possibly be a reversal of that, what appeared to be an earlier decision?
No, I think what happened was they wanted to make the prosecution decision first. I think they had Horowitz's report, and he didn't want to publish that if they were going to prosecute. And they might have even held it up if they were going to charge him. So once they decided not to charge, he's now going to release his report. I can understand the reasons because of the classification problems and all that, but I agree with Victoria. The real mother lode here is not this report, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of awful behavior by him and his lawyer and all this other stuff. To me, what matters is the FISA application process, and I'm sure that's what most people want to know about, because remember, that's what is at the genesis of all the illegal activity, is what they did to try and get the president through Carter Page. And so, Well,
let's talk about that.
Sure. 4
FISA warrants applied for. The Inspector General has indicated that all 4 were illegal on their face, Victoria.
Yes.
How could he not hold responsible every signatory on every one of those warrant applications?
Yep.
It defies my
Including
imagination why people are not being indicted for this kind of false statement. These are not, just not lying to an IG, which is kind of maybe child's play. Michael Flynn made a false statement, really, about his conversation with the Russian ambassador, that our government already had the complete conversation. But this was going after taking the U.S. government's intelligence weapon and directing it at a political campaign of the opposing party. How could this not be some kind of criminal offense?
It is absolutely inconceivable, Lou, that when you have 4 warrants of this magnitude involving a political campaign, and they were all falsely obtained, it is inconceivable to me that you cannot prosecute the people responsible for that. And if that is the decision that is made, not to prosecute, there better be a damn good explanation.
Yeah, I would just underline and put exclamation marks after every word you've said there. It is the American people will I can't imagine them tolerating that result, were that the case, as you point out. Dana Bente, the only person who is still in a job at the Justice Department, the FBI, who was a signator on all of this, still has a job, still seems to be part of the apparatus.
Bruce Orr is still there.
Well, that's right. You're exactly right. How can this be?
I don't know how it can be, because talk about Rod Rosenstein for all his pomposity. He said, well, I really didn't read the application. Now, come on. I've been at that department. I've seen documents this thick. If I'm getting a document to spy against our president, which is what it was at the time Rod Rosenstein signed it, I'm reading every word at least once. And he said, oh, I was briefed on it. Talk about arrogance.
Arrogance, and by the way, there was no shyness about Andrew McCabe either in that respect. And the indication is he is going to be charged. That does not seem consonant with simply a waiver for everyone else who had signed those documents, Joe.
Yeah. Well, you see, here's the problem. The issue is, are we going to have one standard of justice, or are we going to have two? This is a pretty simple concept. Thus far, the two standards of justice seems to be winning clearly in America. So what the decisions that are going to be made over the next several months about who gets prosecuted and doesn't are going to be a bellwether of how we're doing on that side of things. Because, Lou, I have to tell you, the FISA warrant process was created because the subject matter was so important. They didn't like what Richard Nixon did, so they created this whole legal process with these courts. It has been the bellwether of the way we conduct surveillance of American citizens and others in spying matters. And if you can get away with what Comey and McCabe and all these people did, and if you can be as lax as Rosenstein apparently was in not reading the actual affidavit, then the process should be put to a halt. And it should stop. They shouldn't use it anymore. And they ought to go back to having the President of the United States make all the decisions about who gets spied on.
And here's what the FISA court owes us.
Very quickly, please, Victoria.
It owes us an explanation of what it did about all of this.
Yeah, what if anything, did the FISA court do when it found all this out?
And what did the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court do
Oh, that was
about
my next line.
Johnny R.
I'm sorry, Victoria. We will continue the conversation
Great minds.
at the
Great minds.
Well, thank you for putting me in your club.